In this demonstration, I want to show you how we can use CI/CD pipelines and VSTS to deploy to a Kubernetes cluster. So here you see the Kubernetes cluster I have, and at the moment I have a cluster running with 4 agent nodes running. They're all Windows nodes, and if you look at every node, you can see that it's running in the cluster. It has IP addresses, and there might be some resources already deployed to that, some pods that might be running. So you see that I have some exercises running, which are just jobs that are running on my cluster at the moment. And if we go to services, then you see that I have 2 services already exposed. And what I would like to do with my deployment pipeline is deploy the IIS customized image that we have using a deployment pipeline and running that to Kubernetes. So we are extending something that we've done in the first module. So here you see when I go back to my custom IIS Git repository that's where my source files are. So here you see the Docker files and the index HTML that are used to create the Docker file. If we go to the build, then we have the build that we created in the previous module. And this is the CI build that I can then use to run deployments. So when I use the custom IIS Docker CI that we just created, that's the one that we're going to deploy. So now when I go to releases, then you see that I have this deploy custom IIS on agent. That's the one that we've done in module 1. So here we have the steps that we go through in verify. We run the image, we run some tests, and then we stop the image and clean the image. And the final one here is now that we added an extra stage. So after the verify, I now have a second stage that I can then run on my Kubernetes cluster. So here we see the same steps that I had in the previous deployment pipeline. And now we have to deploy to K8S, which stands for Kubernetes. And here you see that I can run just the command line. I'm going to use kubectl. Then I do a create deployment. I'm going to specify the name of the deployment, and then I'm going to specify the image name, which is my Marcel V / and then my custom IIS, which is the name of the image that is published to the Docker registry. The second step is exposing the deployment to a port. So I need to specify the name again, and then I'm specifying type load balancer, which makes it exposed to the outer world using the load balancer, and I'm exposing port 80. So now what I can do is I can say create a release after I selected the right agent, which is running on my machine, because kubectl is running here on my machine and can be executed. So now, again, let's start a release. I'm going to select my build. And next I click create, and that will create the new release. You can follow along by clicking on the tab. We can follow along by clicking on the tab, and then we can see that the job is started on my agent, and we can then see, following the logs, what is going on. So you see that it's running through the verify stage, running the image, and then cleaning up the container and stopping the container. And then it goes to the second stage, which is then deployed to the Kubernetes cluster, which will then in its turn run the different commands, run on the kubectl, the create, and the expose. So when I refresh my dashboard, you now see that I have this custom IIS deployment, and we also see that it created a replica set for this, and that a first pod is created, and now it's waiting for pulling the image. Then we also have some services. So I created a new service that will be exposed, and this will now be handed over to the load balancer in Azure, and there it will create some rules and routing rules to actually get to this particular service. So you see it's still waiting to get the image from the Docker Hub for me, and that always takes a little bit of time because it needs to download to the particular agent the full image, after which it then can start the container for me. So let's go to workloads and wait a little bit, and then I fast forwarded this a little bit in the video, but after a couple of minutes you now see that we have my custom IIS, which is green. And if we take a look at this, we can then see that this particular deployment is available as a service. So if you go and look at the pods, you can see that the pod is created, is running, and then the service is exposing this on a specific IP address and a port. And when I browse to that, you can see that now my page is running on the cluster, and I can then start scaling this to my heart's content if I get more users on the cluster. So this way we used CI/CD pipelines in VSTS to deploy to a Kubernetes cluster, which, as you can see, is not that difficult to do.